So you all set?
Oh, hey, one, two, three, and go. Welcome back to Office Hours with Doc. I am delighted to have you join us again. We are in season two, and we are having amazing conversations with educators across the country, in some cases across the world, and definitely across the education ecosystem, the pre-K-12 education ecosystem, which basically is the group of nonprofits and state and local districts and schools that come together to, in many ways, help to transform the lives of students in America. I am so excited to have my guest today, Amanda Hsu, from, well, she'll tell you where she's from and all the work that she's doing. But I know she's in Los Angeles, California. And so before I go any further, let me just welcome her and give her an opportunity to say hello to everyone. And it's so great to have you, Amanda.
Thank you so much, Dr. Scott. It's so wonderful to join you here today. You remembered I am currently in Los Angeles, California. It's such a pleasure to be connecting with you and all of the folks who are listening today.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for joining us, Amanda. Amanda was telling me that she spends some time as she's commuting in the LA metro area listening to our office hours with Doc season one, and she is a part of season two. And so we're going to jump right into the conversation. Amanda, why don't you just talk a little bit about your leadership trajectory? A lot of people wonder, how did people in leadership, particularly in education, get to where they are? Maybe you can start off by telling us where you are now, then we'll talk about the work later, but where you are now and what does that trajectory look like? I believe there was some part of it that connected with me in the Harvard Graduate School of Education, but we'd like the whole trajectory.
Of course, I'd be delighted to share. So, I'm currently the Director of Workforce Development at Connections for Children, which is a nonprofit in LA County serving families, childcare providers, and children. So, my journey really started in, I want to say, as young as I was, probably in the third grade. My mom was an immigrant to the United States, and she wanted to start her own family childcare business. I just wanted to make sure as we're continuing that you can still hear me okay.
Yes, we can. You sound great.
Okay, wonderful. So my mom was a family child care provider. She wanted to open her own business, and that really influenced me because she was very interested in serving the community and helping parents who wanted to go to work to be able to go back to work because they had a safe place for their children to stay, to grow, to flourish. And so watching her go through that process of starting her own business, getting to know the community, when English was her second language was so empowering. She went through an education of becoming a Montessori certified teacher. So she brought a lot of those really important practices to her classroom. And we would go door to door advertising and just connecting with community members to see what their needs were. So that really inspired me to be a part of the early childhood sector. So I knew that when I wanted to go to my undergrad, that I wanted to study early childhood and even special education. After being a teacher for several years in the special ed inclusion setting, I realized that a lot of teachers need a significant level of support in the classroom in order to best serve students and families. And so, after talking to quite a few of my mentors, including my lead teachers at the time, and some of my former college professors, I decided to pursue my grad school degree at Harvard in school leadership. And that is where I connected with you, Dr. Scott.
Mm-hmm.
I really was so excited because Harvard was one of those really special programs that had a more entrepreneurial strand. So I knew that in starting the business with my mom, that I probably was going to go a more non-traditional route of being still connected to communities, children, and families and educators, but I wanted there to be room for innovation. So I did a lot of, discussions with you, Dr. Scott, as well as some other professors and colleagues, and was so inspired to come back to my home state of California and to actually start one of the first Mandarin immersion campuses in a Montessori network in Southern California. So I had the privilege of being ahead of school there. It wasn't easy work, though, definitely during the pandemic, starting with a new team, building the ground up from, outreaching to families at farmers markets and recruiting teachers and trying to figure out, the safest health and safety protocols. But it was really rewarding work to be a school leader at that time, to be this grounded presence for families, for children, for educators. And it taught me a lot about what it means to work in this ecosystem and to partner with different agencies to be there to support families. And I guess that's truly what inspired me at the end of the day during the pandemic to come into the work of where I am now, of being in the middle of an ecosystem and in a community-based organization to serve families and to really listen to what their needs are and connect with other agencies who specialize in serving families for those needs.
That's beautiful. So much to unpack there. A couple of real quick follow-up questions. Where did your mother immigrate from?
Yes. So my mom immigrated from Taiwan. Both of my parents did, actually. It was a very big move in her life. She had her own parents come with her, her siblings, my dad similarly, and they wanted to come to America to better their chances of starting a family and increasing access to a quality education for both my sister and me.
Beautiful. Was your mom a trained educator? Like she started a school? Was that her background?
So, not when she first came to the States. When she
Mm.
first came to the States, she actually stayed at home for about 7 to 8 years just to make sure that my sister and I had a quality education and consistent care. And I think that's what truly inspired her to become a teacher, because she knew that when she first came to this country that it was a really big challenge. Childcare was expensive. She didn't know many people in the community. So she really wanted to create a space where she could allow other parents to feel that sense of reassurance. So she went to get her education by becoming a Montessori certified teacher first, and then decided, you know what, I think that I could create, an innovative space where families could feel secure and could leave their children and start to focus on their own careers while knowing that their children were being well cared for.
Mm, that's powerful. Thank you so much. And so she had an entrepreneurial spirit
That's right.
that it sounds like you picked up on, if I'm seeing
Absolutely.
a theme here. Then you mentioned you going on to college. What school did you go to? What did you study?
Yes, so I went to NYU, New York University, and I studied early childhood and special education. So when I was doing my research on different undergraduate programs, it was really important to me that I was able to get a well-rounded sort of experience. And so NYU really caught my attention because it was a dual degree program. And there were a lot of hands-on opportunities to work in the different boroughs in New York, and seeing, my mom's own sort of experience as an immigrant coming into an unknown space and how she helped families really feel at ease of all different income levels. It was really important to me to be able to give back to the community, but also understand, where different families may have varying needs, and also where different learners of different abilities might need to be supported by different agencies within the community.
Mhm.
So NYU offered that as I was doing my research, and so I was very excited about the opportunity.
Wow. Your experience, your degree sits, if I'm not mistaken, at the intersection of special education, early childhood. I think your experiences, particularly with your mom, working with students and families that are immigrant students, also brought in the language, ESL. So at the intersection of all of these learning differences, we might say, you were trying to, and your mom, provide a powerful teaching and learning experience that advanced students forward. Is that a good summary?
Yes, you got it.
That's powerful. Thank you so much. Um, so you do the program at NYU. You teach a little bit. Is this in New York City?
Yes, in New York City.
Oh.
So I taught at an independent school. We were on the upper levels. It's called Mary Cat's Castle School, a small independent school that was actually part of a nonprofit called the Association to Benefit Children. And the
Mm,
thing that pulled me in was this sense of community, this sense of working together with many different, people within the community. The parents there were from all different boroughs. I had students who would ride the subway in, some who would walk to school, some who would take the taxi. But it was just so beautiful to see that there could be a community where children of different learning abilities could thrive in a classroom, children from different income levels, children of different diverse backgrounds
mm,
could really, like a space could exist for that.
mm,
And that really laid the groundwork for who I wanted to be as an educator and the type of environment that I wanted to create for families who might be starting school for the first time. And I say
mm.
families because I think a lot of the emphasis sometimes is on the children, but parents are so much a part of that experience. And if a parent doesn't feel at ease, it's very hard for a child to.
So, so true. Um, I want to follow up with so many different questions, but I feel like I can't leave this conversation around families supporting children and schools supporting families without getting, I'm not trying to be political, but there's a lot going on in our country right now around immigrants, around families who have diverse needs. Um, any word of encouragement or wisdom for individuals who are doing work in that space right now before I go to my next question?
Absolutely. So you're right. I think right now is a very trying time. We're up against a lot of different challenges in society with the administration of proposed budget cuts to Head Start, different budget cuts to Medicaid, and it sounds like it's all very political. And at the end of the day, I think what's really important to hold in mind is these changes all do affect childcare. And
Mm,
why is that important? I can't stress enough that when families do not have access to quality childcare, parents cannot go to their jobs and feel secure. And
mm,
so I think it's so essential, one, to slow it down, to take a pause, to really understand what are the proposed changes. What can our community do? How can we work together to really advocate for the most vulnerable populations? Children are in that mix, families of varying income levels. I think that it can be really easy to lose hope in these situations. And it's important to know that together, if we put our minds to it and our hearts to it, we can overcome the challenges. It will take time, and it's definitely a roll your sleeves up time for our entire community. But it's really important to, I think, take a beat and to slow down, to understand, and come together as a community to really listen to what the needs are at a local level so that we can begin to tackle some of the needs that may happen at a higher level, nationally, internationally, and beyond.
Thank you so much. And I really want to anchor around that word hope, that I think is so important. And this is not only hope, obviously, for families and students, but also for the educators that they serve, and giving that word of encouragement is really important. And you alluded to something else that I think is really central to these conversations we're having, and that is this notion of an ecosystem of supports for students, for families, even for educators. When I think about the pre-K-12 education ecosystem, it really is about educators and individuals who work in the space of education or support to children, working in a deliberate and cohesive and strategic way, to advance outcomes. Talk a little bit, if you would, about your position now. Like, how do you leverage that ecosystem perspective? Maybe you can talk about what do you actually do, your role, and then how do you touch different parts of those who serve children and educators?
Absolutely. I think that, just as you're talking about, this work is always interconnected. And in my role as the director of workforce development, one of the really key things is I talk a lot with my team about how to support early childcare providers and professionals. And that support is really evolving. It requires us to be really nimble with everything that is happening and that has happened in really just the last 4 or 5 months. We went for, I think, there were a lot of learnings from the pandemic of COVID-19 and how we could better support early care providers, and even learnings recently in LA County from the wildfires and having to pivot. I think the ecosystem works together in a way where I'm finding we can't just rely on traditional funding streams anymore, right? From federal or state sources. We have to be creative in getting in contact with our local chambers of commerce to advocate for funding, sponsorship, for people to speak on behalf of early care and education. I'm having to do a lot of advocacy work, talking with our local assembly members to host childcare site visits so that local politicians remember or begin to understand the importance of early childcare. Yeah, and the fact that it doesn't just happen in traditional settings of what we consider childcare. For example, many people may think of childcare as a traditional childcare center. However, childcare is a mixed delivery system. There are family childcare providers that provide home and their care. There are license exempt providers who could be a family member, a friend, a neighbor. There are after school programs. There are private schools. There are charter schools, there are public schools, right? Care can look really different depending on the needs of each family. And so I think when we're working in the ecosystem, it's really important in my work as the director of workforce development to connect the dots and to really work with my team to lift up the stories of the childcare providers so that we can branch out and diversify the different funding streams that are coming in to support these providers. We're talking a lot about the different challenges that childcare providers are facing now. And so we've had to pivot not just to get them access to free professional development trainings, but things like mental wellness groups, right? Working together with local businesses and experts in the mental health sector who are able to provide this work so that it is sustainable. So I think it requires us to work differently and in a way that is highly collaborative and creative, which is why I say, there is a lot of good energy and hope out there if we're willing to see it.
Yeah, I hear the ecosystem really being leveraged in your role. You talked about policymakers. It was really fascinating. You mentioned site visits.
Yes,
I'm assuming for people who are in positions of changing policy and making
that's
funding
right.
happen. If they don't see this, if they don't experience it, if they don't know it, they're clueless about what you're actually proposing. We can't assume that everyone understands the importance of childcare. You would think they would understand the importance of childcare, or more importantly, know what quality childcare looks like. And so it sounds like you're being very thoughtful about getting those individuals in these sites. The other thing you talked about, which you may have not framed it this way, but the way I think about it is an ecosystem of childcare supports many different ways that children can receive care. And so not just one way, or not perhaps just the traditional way that we remember receiving care. And, it made me wonder, like, this is more of a tactical question. Are you in charge when you say workforce development for a for the county, for like, what's your purview? What are you responsible for, Amanda?
That's a great question. I have the privilege of working with 10 other resource and referral agencies. So my
Mm,
agency is responsible for kind of this, we like to say, a dolphin shape along the coast. The northern tip is the nose, which is as far north as Malibu, all the way down as south as Rancho Palos Verdes. So we cover Santa Monica, a lot of West LA, the South Bay, Torrance, parts of um, the Gardena area. So
mm,
we definitely have overlap with other agencies. And this work, LA County is so big, it would be impossible for one agency alone to cover the full service area. And which is why I say, and you alluded to this too, there are multiple ecosystems that we're
mhm,
working with, not just, among the PK through 12 sort of system,
mhm.
but the mixed delivery system of childcare providers. And then we have our networks of other nonprofits. And mine is a resource and referral agency. And so we have the privilege of working with over, I would say, at this point, 600 providers and thousands of families in our subsidized program.
Wow. Are faith-based organizations involved in that experience also, I would imagine?
Yes, yes. So we have some schools that are faith-based schools who are part of our service area that we've been working with for many years. Some are subsidized program providers, which means that they agree to partner with us. Our funding streams allow us to subsidize for part of the care that a family is eligible for, depending on the family size and gross income level.
Wow. Well, this is an amazing conversation, Amanda. And you alluded to this, and that is the wildfires in the California area. And what's one? This is sort of a concluding question. I so applaud the work that you're doing. What's one sort of? I'm not even. I'm struggling with even getting it out. If there was something that came out of that experience that, in some ways, um, will help you and you guys could learn from. I think a
Mhm.
lot of times we have these crises, and COVID is an example of this. We only focus on sort of the negative experience of the crises, but leaders have to focus on what can I learn from? What can we build on? What's something that um, will help us move forward going forward? It's hard to say something positive because these are oftentimes tragic events, but from a leadership perspective, is there something that you feel like that experience has taught you or the organizations that will help you grow in the future?
Absolutely. I think there, are multiple takeaways. I think one of the biggest takeaways is how we can further enhance our disaster preparedness programs for our professional development,
Mhm.
sort of series. We do have a dedicated preventive health and safety coordinator and, sort of regular emergency preparedness trainings that happen annually. But I think having that information is always very helpful. And maybe having it multiple times a year so that when things happen, emergencies happen, people are more prepared and have concrete plans of, what is the next step. I think the other takeaway is that we've seen that the community has really come together and it's so
Mm,
powerful. I think it just reinforces for us how important it is to work within an ecosystem and to build those relationships before things like this happen. And the reason that I'm saying this is it's been so touching to see whether we're at, a local community college doing fire relief distribution of supplies, or, we're taking phone calls. I've seen time and time again people showing up for each other, people who themselves have been impacted and are picking up diapers for their neighbors who have lost their homes, childcare providers who have urgently applied to community care licensing to
mm,
get waivers so that they can increase the number of students that they can take to help a neighboring school. Childcare providers who are sharing a new location together, knowing that, things are expensive now and reconstruction and cleanup takes some time. And so I think overall, it really is true that relationships are at the core of everything. And I think that's why the framework that you've emphasized is so important because it's relationship based. And that's what is at the core of you know leadership, collaboration, and really when things happen, how the community can show up for you.
thank you, thank you, thank you. And speaking of relationship, to think that this conversation began when you became one of my students, and it is just an honor to reconnect and hear you talk and see your leadership um, move forward in such a powerful way on behalf of children. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Dr. Scott. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
All righty.
All right, y'all. Great job.